There's a trick to breathing on approach, slow through the teeth, just enough pressure to test the mask's seal. It's not about oxygen, it's about control. If the seal hisses, you've got time. If it whistles, it's too late. This one didn't hiss. It stuttered. I adjusted the clamp on my faceplate, thumbed the side vent, listened again. Still stuttering. Bad omen. Gravity's light, I muttered, voice thick through the transducer, hulls flexing. Reading 1.2 degrees off standard. Could be torsion stress, could be internal swell. Can't tell yet. Bronick didn't answer right away. He never did. The man moved like he thought time was a blade, and stillness kept him from bleeding. He stood beside me at the airlock, one gloved hand rapping lightly on the reinforced ring around the hatch. Ceramic alloy echoed under his knuckles. "Deck hates us," he said finally. "Walk like it." That was Brannock Dell's idea of small talk. Behind us, the docking tube groaned as the coupling bolts locked into the Artemus Solus's outer skin. The readout stuttered again. A flicker, not an alert. Minor anomalies. Standard integration drift, the AI chirped. Nothing to log, nothing to worry about. But the Solus shouldn't have been answering at all. She'd gone dark 6 months ago, dead in the water near a black dwarf called the Cinder Point. Uncharted space, supposedly empty. Her transponder had vanished, life support, comms, nav, all flatlined. No mayday, no debris. Now she was back, drifting, dark, but warm. That was enough to worry someone high up at Osiris Gate Conglomerate, enough to buy a recovery crew. 4 bodies, no backups, a patch job team on a no-registry cutter named Sparrowhawk. No formal trail, just 4 names burned into a blinking briefing file. I was the lead, Osri Vane, recovery contractor, 42 years old, 10,000 hours logged in 0G salvage, 63 successful retrievals, 6 confirmed failures, 18 bodies lost. That last number never updated, not because it didn't grow, just because I stopped counting. The comm line clicked. Our last 2 were catching up, meg boots scraping over the hull with uneven rhythm. I had to recalibrate Polly twice, Skell muttered as he clambered up the docking collar. She doesn't like the gravity gradient, too much flex, whole ship's breathing. I hate it when they breathe. Polly wasn't a person, she was his scanner, a hacked-up biochemical sniffer, 6 different makes stitched together with duct tape and corrosion scars. Skell had once led a quarantine op that went sideways. Corporate buried it. No record, no accountability. Whatever happened, it stuck with him. He didn't talk about it, but every time he checked Polly, it wasn't just for data. It was to prove to himself he still had control. He talked to her like a partner, like she was the only thing he trusted. "You say that every time," I said. "That's because everything breathes crooked, Vane, especially after it's died once." Vekman came next, quiet, until his boots clipped the hatch lip and he stumbled, bracing on the inner rim. He stared at the seam where the deck met the wall and traced his fingers along the alloy like reading braille. 2.5-degree incline, he murmured. Not sag, reformed intentionally. This isn't damage, it's redesign. That tracked with what we'd already seen. The Artemis Solus had once been a luxury liner. Top tier, corporate funded, flaunting decadence past the rim of known space. Rotating gardens, gold-trimmed promenades, zero-pressure spas, gravity pools. The whole thing was a glittering middle finger to the void. Now it looked like a corpse wired up for a wake. Elegant bones dressed in wrought metal. The seams squirmed like scar tissue. The alloy was bulging at the joints, swollen like infection. We docked at what used to be a starboard personnel airlock. The registry still blinked, old greeting hologram looping silently. Welcome to the Artemis Solace. Journey beyond the stars with all the comforts of home. The image didn't flicker. It rippled like light under oil. The voice played wrong too. Spliced, fragmented, pieces of different phrases echoing out of sync across different decks. Airlocks live, I said finally. Seal integrity's questionable, but holding. Gravity patchy. Atmosphere. I sniffed, pointless through the mask, but instincts louder than logic. Thick. Blood in the pipes. High carbon. Chemical irritants. Yeah, Skell said. Biopresence confirmed. Minimal actives. No particulates. But the signature's corrupted. Brannick didn't wait. He hit the lock override. The hatch opened without sound. No hiss. No vacuum tug. Just a clean fluid slide. Like the ship wanted us to come in. I've seen airlocks jam under pressure. Seen them pop under drift. But I've never seen one open politely. Inside, it was dim. The light didn't come from fixtures. It came from the walls. Thin tracer filaments, chemical, probably synthetic, threaded along every surface, spiraling like vines, recursive and symmetrical. The floor plating had melted at the corners, fusing into the walls. No straight lines, no corners. Everything curved, organic. We stepped in. That's when we saw them. Figures, not hiding, not attacking. Working. 3 of them. Human-shaped. Maybe once human. One was stacking oxygen tanks and ration packs into a spiral tower. Methodical, precise, like ritual. His arms moved in looping arcs. His eyes fused shut or hollowed. Flesh had been peeled back, revealing cybernetic support struts along bone and tendon. His joints locked with every motion, like a puppet on invisible strings. He didn't look at us, didn't stop, just kept stacking. Like if he stopped, something worse would happen. Marek moved first, too fast. Back, I hissed, too late. The figure's head snapped toward us. The body stayed still, but the limbs moved fast, one arm knocking the tower sideways in a kinetic burst, tanks clattering like bones. The other hand grabbed a shard of paneling, raised it like a tool or a blade. Brannick fired twice, leg, shoulder, quick and clean. The man dropped. I knelt beside the body, skin gone semi-translucent around the implants. Breathing shallow. No panic, no pain. Fingers twitching in the air, still trying to stack even while bleeding. Alive? Vec asked. There was no screaming, no rage, no madness. This wasn't berserker syndrome, not a glitch, not psychotic collapse. They weren't mad. They were working. For something else, I muttered. This ship didn't fail, Vec said, voice flat. She was taken. And now she's building, he added, quietly, almost reverently. Becoming. He wasn't wrong, and whatever the Solace had started becoming, we were already inside of it, and it had already started listening. We didn't speak much after the first encounter. That man, the one stacking, still breathing, still working after Brannick's sidearm dropped him, had rewired more than his limbs. He'd restructured our certainty. I've seen damage. I've seen madness. That wasn't either. It was purpose. In every arc of his arms, in the perfect spiral of his tower. Purpose that didn't belong to him anymore. We moved deeper. The corridors flexed around us. Every schematic I projected into my HUD distorted. Hallways curved where they used to run straight. Junctions misaligned. Rooms vanished or opened into impossible volumes, too large, too intentional. V kept sketching. Every corner, every seam, every recursive spiral. He muttered under his breath. Nested load paths, directional design, structural grammar. This is language, he said, just not made from words. In the crew quarters, we found more figures. Some fused into walls, others threading wires through their own arms like they were trying to interface with the hull. No aggression. Just work. Endless and unreadable. Then we saw her. We didn't call her human, not really. She had once worn a passenger services uniform, pristine in some places, scarlet epaulets neatly folded, nameplate half erased by corrosion. But her jaw was gone. Not broken, removed. Clean surgical seals wrapped in translucent polymer. Where her throat had been, a cluster of pale ports pulsed slowly, like flower buds. She dragged a half-fused communications console behind her. It was bolted to her spine. Her movements were methodical. Every 10 paces she paused, tapped the device against the wall, moved again. "She's mapping," Vey whispered, "not wandering. She's marking." "Marking what?" Brannick asked. No answer. Just silence, the kind that means you almost understand something you don't want to. Brannick raised his rifle, took aim. He didn't fire. "Not yet." "She hasn't engaged," I said. "She doesn't need to," he replied. "Something's seeing through her." I stepped between them. He lowered the rifle, barely. Scale had dropped to one knee, running Polly over the wall smear she left behind. He touched the residue, held his fingers up to the light. "Residual enzyme breakdown," he said. "Mimetic biogel." She wasn't wired like that. She was trained, seeded, the way fungus teaches a tree how to rot in a spiral. That one hit hard. No infection, no corruption, just instruction, written in anatomy. We pushed on, toward the gardens. The Solace was supposed to have state-of-the-art biofarms, capable of sustaining a full luxury manifest for over a year. The doors to the central hydroponic bays had melted shut. Material fused like it had forgotten it was ever two separate pieces. Brannick breached it with a 2-stage charge. The deck shook, the doors split. Inside was no garden, no light fixtures, no crops. The air shimmered with spores, dense enough to taste. Our filters cycled up to max within seconds. The greenery had been replaced with black mats of fibrous vinework, studded with dull silver nodules. They flexed in ambient heat. Some opened as we passed, exhaling mist like breath from unseen lungs. "Watch the spores," Skell said. "If the filters fail, your blood becomes fertilizer." "Could these have started as food crops?" V asked. "Could have started as people," Skell muttered. The walls weren't wet, not with moisture. They sweated something oily with a synthetic sweetness. It reminded me of autopsy labs, too clean to be wrought, too alive to ignore. At the center of the basin was the nest, tubing, scaffolding, bone, layered in concentric rings around a pedestal. On it, a body, torso flayed open, ribs pinned back, organs removed, replaced with latticework of biometal and printed flesh. Still warm, still moving. Va leaned close, sketching, his hands trembling. "They're trying to say something," he whispered. "This is syntax, a structural language, grammar, but for form." "Back off," Brannick snapped, dragging him backward. V resisted at first, then froze. I saw the change hit him. Recognition and dread twinned. His breath hitched. "I wasn't thinking," he said. "It just felt important." "That's how it starts," Skell muttered. "Curiosity's the first symptom." I called retreat. We left the gardens, fell back to the corridor outside, set camp at the entry to the central spire, rotating watches, hex-sealed perimeter. V didn't sketch again that night. Skell ran chemical purges on every filter twice. Brannick sharpened his blades over and over. I logged our path, marked every anomaly, annotated every pattern. Then I opened a private channel. Mission Day 2. Internal structure shifting. Recommend no follow-up teams. Not salvageable. 10 altered crew encountered. Only 2 engaged. That's the part that worries me. They're not defending. They're not hunting. They're building. And they don't need us to finish it. The ship wasn't damaged. It was found. Or maybe it found something. We're not on the Artemis Solace anymore. We're inside its cocoon. The gravity started shifting again that night, subtle, enough to disorient. Hallways bent sideways, floors leaned, gut lurches followed by silence. The kind of sickness that lives in your bones, not your stomach. We followed the spire upward. Originally, it had been the ship's heart, an open atrium connecting lounges, promenades, viewing plazas, a vertical marvel. Now it was an organ. We entered from Deck 12, engineering access. The moment we crossed in, we stopped. No sound, no motion. The air was thick, not with gas, but with expectation. The atrium walls had changed, no longer transparent, layered with mercury-colored mesh, radial beams, and folding struts like metallic webbing. At the center of the ceiling, a nexus. "This is signal architecture," V said, stepping forward. His body moved too easily, like the ship adjusted for him. "They're building something that can speak back." "Speak to what?" Bronick asked. V didn't answer. "Look at the density, the nodal frequencies, the recursive alignment." "Stop," Bronick barked. V kept talking. "It's not random. This is a sentence. I can map it. I can finish the sequence." "And then what?" Bronick growled. "You going to talk back?" "I think it already understands me," V said. Bronick shoved him to the floor. He didn't hit him hard, just enough to break whatever trance had settled. V blinked. His eyes were wet, focused on the air. "You said it's communicating," I said, "that it's building a message." V nodded slowly. "But it's not transmitting," he whispered. "It's becoming the message." That did it. Scaly stormed forward, grabbed Vey by the collar. "If you're infected, say it." "I'm not." "You've been whispering to the walls. You haven't slept. You move like something speaking through you." Bronick stepped in, voice low and sharp. "He's compromised." I raised a hand. "Enough. Nobody's shooting anyone unless something grows teeth and tries to eat us." I looked V in the eye. "You still with us?" His focus snapped back. "Yeah," he said. "Still here, just the way it all connects. It makes sense. Then we survive first, understand later." We pulled him back up. No apologies. Bronick kept his rifle drawn. We continued upward. Gravity glitched again, pulling soft, slanted, never straight, like the ship was deciding how to hold us. We passed a lift junction. Inside, 2 men stood in stillness, identical, uniforms fused to skin. White eyes, armor plating embedded in their shoulders. They didn't move, not until Bronick stepped within 4 meters. Then one saluted, 2 fingers to the temple. "Hold. Lower." "Corporate military protocol," Bronick whispered. "Exactly, I trained them that way." We didn't speak. We walked, slowly, respectfully, like entering a room that remembered how you used to pray. Later, camped again, I found Bronick cleaning his blade. "That wasn't memory," he said. "What was it then?" "Reflex. Preserved. Same thing." "No," he snapped. "Not even close." He stared at the wall like he could see beyond it. "We had a saying. Secure the perimeter. Don't ask about the cargo. That salute. It was our way of confirming orders without comms. In blackout. In blood zones." He looked at me, voice brittle. "They're not saluting me. They're saluting the ghost of command. What's left after the person gets stripped out." That's when I understood. The ship wasn't erasing people. It was using them, reconfiguring flesh into function, memory into syntax, reflex into grammar. Not a vessel, not a trap, a sentence, and it was nearly complete. I used to believe that survival was the story, that walking away meant something. Now I know better. We found the survivor cluster deep in the ship's gut, where schematics ended and new construction began. 10 cryopods stood in a spiral, not horizontal, vertical, mounted like ribs around a central spine of pulsing cables and muscular conduit, each pod tethered to the next, each face visible through a translucent lid. Not asleep, not dead, held, modified, aware. One of them looked at me as I approached. Her eyes tracked the motion. Her lips moved. No sound came out. Her tongue was gone. It had been repurposed, turned into a binding suture along the base of her jaw. Bronick raised his rifle. "You know what I'm going to say," he murmured. I did. "We hesitate, we lose the core," he said. "The message completes. We've failed the species." "They're still alive," I said. "They are part of it. Not all the way. Not yet." He didn't lower the weapon, but he didn't shoot. Scally stepped forward with a vial of neutralizer, hand hovering over the pod's interface. "Category 4, crossover," he said. "We can't extract them. Contamination risk too high." "You're assuming they're infected." "I'm assuming they're not finished." That landed like a knife, right below the ribs. I turned to the woman again, tapped the side of her pod gently. Her eyes widened. That was all. But it was her. Still her. I keyed into the auxiliary rig, bypassed the binding code, and disrupted the tethered power loop. Just for a second. The pods dimmed, the cables slackened, and something in the room exhaled. A pause, like the ship itself was waiting to see what I'd do next. I logged coordinates, set a beacon, gave it 15 hours. If we didn't reach the engine core and break the signal before then, the orbital platform above us would drop a surgical strike. No recovery, no wreckage, just fire. Then we went down. One more level, where the pulse of the ship came strongest. The core wasn't a reactor anymore, it was an altar. It spanned 5 decks vertically, wrapped in scaffolding, nerves, memory metal, and bone. The engineers were still there, their bodies hollowed out and rigged into the structure, nervous systems jacked into control conduits, twitching in loops. I asked Bronick if we had charges. He didn't speak, just handed me the satchel. Scally took point. V moved like he was underwater, limbs slow, eyes distant. Then he stopped and pointed. "There," he said, "above that junction. The nodal convergence. If you breach it there, you break the message sequence." Bronick eyed the line. "Doable. 1 shot." "You'll have seconds," I said. "Then I'll take them." I climbed alone. The gantry groaned beneath my boots. The heat didn't rise. It pressed. The air tasted like anticipation. The torch in my hand felt heavier than it should have, and I realized something as I reached the altar's peak. It wasn't a place. It was a punctuation mark, a final symbol in a sentence written from labor, breath, and repurposed thought. A machine speaking through its tools. Through us. The altar didn't have a face, but its arrangement felt like one. Something about the symmetry, the stillness, the waiting. It knew I was there. It knew what this moment meant. I thought of all of them. The workers who never stopped stacking, the bellwoman with her console, the stewardess who walked into the wall like she was coming home. I thought of the woman in the pod with no tongue and eyes full of choice, and I thought of Bronick standing behind me without asking me to stop. I lit the torch, pressed it into the altar's base. At first, it accepted the flame. Then it screamed. The walls buckled, scaffolds above us writhed and snapped like tendons under tension. Cables tore free, bone and wire convulsed. The altar tried to reconfigure, pulling the damage inward, swallowing the breach like it wanted to reshape injury into function. But it was too late. I felt the fracture in my boots, an asymmetry, a snapped harmony cascading up through the spine of the ship. The solace had come so close. It had almost become something language could not hold, and I had torn the last word from its mouth. Below, Brannick pulled V out from under a falling beam. Scala was yelling something I couldn't hear through the static. The lights in the survivor pods dimmed again. Not deleted, interrupted, incomplete. We ran. Brannick took a gash across his thigh, armor cracked and bleeding. V hauled him upright. Didn't hesitate, didn't sketch, just carried. We reached the tram junction. Scala had already hacked the maglocks, forcing the doors with Polly's last battery arc. The tram moaned as we shoved in. Brannick collapsed beside a crate. Punched a clot tab into his leg. Didn't flinch. I keyed the tram forward. Motors stuttered, caught. We jolted into motion. The ship fell away behind us. Corridors twisted like muscle remembering how to grow. Rooms unfolded like paper models dissected and reassembled. Half-built torsos embedded in walls, arms frozen in gesture, fusing, wiring, building. The transmission node had never been a place. It had been a process. We didn't kill it. But we broke its syntax. The tram jerked again. I hit the floor, rolled, caught a glimpse of her just past the next junction. A stewardess, or something that wore her. She held a glowing data core like a cradle. Her eyes were smooth lenses, her shoulders cracked open, bones splitting like branches. She walked into the wall and it accepted her. No resistance, just completion. Brannick pulled himself upright beside me. "How long to the hangar?" he asked. 2 minutes, maybe 3. He nodded, handed me his rifle. "You're not going to make it that far," I said. He didn't argue, just turned. "Sometimes the job is to carry," he said. "Sometimes it's to hold the line." Then he shoved me hard into the wall. Not enough to hurt, just enough to make it real. I watched him walk to the rear of the tram, take a position, rifle raised. I didn't see what happened after that, just heard it. One long burst, a pause, 2 more, then silence. We hit the hangar. The door wasn't a door anymore. It had become an iris, segmenting and twitching like an eye adjusting to light. Scaly fired Polly's last arc. The door screamed open. The Sparrowhawk was still there. I ran diagnostics on the move. Life support fouled but stable. Engines cold but intact. Hull pressure nominal. We didn't stop. We didn't breathe. We left. The Solace tried to hold us, not physically, with presence. That feeling when someone says your name in another room. But we broke free. The Sparrowhawk detached. No rush. No scream. Just distance. Like walking away from a prayer whispered in a language you almost understood. No final transmission. No flare. Just silence. The ship shrank behind us, its silhouette less like a vessel, more like a thought you weren't supposed to think, a dream you could never quite remember. We drifted in blackout for 4 hours. V sat quiet, staring at the dead comm screen. Scaly injected something that would have gotten him flagged in every port this side of Orion, then passed out upright. I sat in the pilot cradle, watching the dark. At some point, V turned to me. "What do you think it was trying to say?" I didn't answer, or maybe I did, just not out loud. We'd survived, but that wasn't the story. The story was this. We stopped it. Not because we were strong, not because we were clever, but because we saw the moment when mercy had to become refusal. I left a log behind, sealed it in the nav core, buried it in encrypted fragments Osiris Gate won't find easy to scrub. It says everything. About the Solace. About the crew. About what waits beyond the edges of known space. I didn't log names. There weren't enough bodies left to match them to. But I remember. I remember the pressure of Brannick's hand on my shoulder the day we docked. I remember the silence when Vey stopped sketching. I remember Scala, of all people, reaching for someone else instead of retreating. That's how I know we didn't lose everything. The log ends with one line. If you find something building itself out of people, don't try to understand it. Don't try to talk to it. Just stop it, even if it costs everything.